Are you my daddy? Chloe's small voice sliced through the clink of champagne flutes, the swell of the orchestra, and the polite laughter of Boston's elite. The Halloween gala at the Williamson Estate Ballroom went dead silent. Orange lantern light flickered over carved pumpkins. Costumed senators and socialites froze mid-sip. My 7-year-old daughter stared up at the man in the golden Venetian mask, her pumpkin fairy wings trembling with excitement. I reached for her too late, panic clawing my throat. The secret I'd buried for 8 years had just detonated in a room full of strangers. Ed Williamson, millionaire philanthropist and heir to old New England money, turned slowly. His princely cloak caught the chandelier glow as he knelt on the marble floor, mask tilting like he'd been struck. Chloe's brown eyes, his eyes, the exact Williamson blue with that tiny amber fleck his mother bragged about, locked onto his. His brain did the math before his heart caught up. 7 years old. 8 years since he vanished. July, the summer we thought forever was ours. She has my eyes, he breathed, voice cracking under the mask. Lots of kids have blue eyes, Ed. I managed, but the lie wobbled like cheap cobwebs. Don't. He stood, towering, vulnerable. Her birthday? April 15th. Chloe chirped before I could stop her. July. The pieces slammed together. He had a daughter he never knew existed. Why? The single word carried 8 years of ghosts. The reason wasn't simple. It would gut him, rewrite everything he thought he'd escaped. My name is Margaret Elliott, and this is the story of how one Halloween question made a ballroom of masks drop and dragged the man who broke me back to the truth he'd spent a fortune running from. Before the whispers, the shattered glass, the reckoning. Let me take you back to where the fairy tale cracked. Hi, my beautiful family. Let's start with a blessing. Dear Lord, I ask you to surround every person watching with peace, healing, and endless love. Amen. You're not just an audience. You are my family, the reason I push through on the hardest days. For those who are new here, welcome to the family. Please subscribe, say hello in the comments, and let's grow closer together. Each story I bring is my sacrifice and devotion. When you walk away early, it feels like my heart is left unheard. Please stay with me through the journey until the very end. I love you always. Now let us begin. The carved pumpkins glowed like tiny suns along the estate's grand staircase, their jagged grins mocking the elegance above. I tugged at my $20 witch costume, thrifted velvet, dollar store cobwebs snagged in my curls, while Chloe skipped beside me in her consignment shop fairy wings, clutching a plastic pumpkin bucket already half full of candy from sympathetic guests. At 30, I'd learned to smile through exhaustion. Single motherhood didn't leave room for self-pity. My black nursing clogs peeked beneath the hem, scuffed from double shifts at the clinic. Chloe's orange tutu swished with every step, her curls bouncing like springs. She didn't notice we didn't belong among the silk gowns and tailored tuxedos. To her, tonight was magic-free. We'd only come for the overtime pay. The children's clinic partnered with the Williamson Foundation. Extra hands meant grocery money. I was refilling the punch bowl when Chloe spotted the old Polaroid I kept hidden in my locker. A younger Ed, arms around a younger me, both of us laughing like the world was ours. "Mommy, that's him," she gasped earlier, pointing at the photo I'd forgotten to lock away. Now here he was, real and impossible, charming donors while I served them. Chloe tugged my sleeve. "He's the prince from your picture." My heart stalled. The room spun. Before I could hush her, she marched straight through the crowd, wings fluttering, and asked the question that would burn the night down. Before the whispers, the shattered glass, the reckoning. Let me take you back to where the fairy tale cracked. 8 years ago, Boston smelled like burnt sugar and wet leaves. I was 22, bone-tired, and still believed hustle could outrun history. My name was Margaret Elliott then, same as now, but the weight of it felt lighter. No daughter's hand in mine, no rent due in 3 days, no Polaroid tucked in a drawer like a bruise. Just me, a second-hand backpack, and a nursing textbook I'd annotated in purple pen until the margins bled ink. I worked the graveyard shift at the Common Diner on Tremont, the kind of place where the coffee tasted like regret and the jukebox only played songs from the 80s. My uniform was a faded teal dress 2 sizes too big, cinched with a safety pin so it didn't swallow me whole. Tips paid for tuition, pride paid for everything else. I'd grown up in foster homes that smelled like bleach and broken promises, so I knew how to smile when I wanted to scream. Customers liked that. They tipped better when you looked like you needed it but wouldn't ask. Ed Williamson walked in on a Friday in October, rain dripping from his lashes. He ordered black coffee, no sugar, and sat in the corner booth like he belonged there. Navy peacoat, scuffed loafers, a copy of Capital in the 21st Century, open on the table. He looked expensive in the way old libraries do, quiet, deliberate, impossible to rush. I refilled his cup without being asked. He left a 20 on a $4 tab. He came back the next week. And the next. Always the same booth, same order, same 20 folded into a neat square. One night he stayed until closing, reading while I wiped down tables. When the cook flicked the lights, Ed looked up and said, "You're too good for this place, Margaret." I laughed, because nobody had ever said my name like it was a destination. Ren doesn't care about potential. He started leaving notes on the receipts. "You should be studying, not scrubbing syrup off Formica. Page 142 of your textbook is wrong. Kubler-Ross has 5 stages, not 7 that you have the kind of mind that changes rooms." I kept them in my apron pocket like contraband. By November, we were meeting after my shift. He'd wait outside under the awning, hands in his pockets, breath fogging the air. We walked Boston Common until the street lights blurred. He listened when I talked about growing up shuffle between strangers, about the foster mom who taught me to braid my hair tight enough to hide the tears. I listened when he talked about his family's summer house on the Cape, about expectations that felt like handcuffs disguised as heirlooms. We never said the obvious. He was white, wealthy, headed for boardrooms. I was black, broke, headed for night shifts, and instead, we traded futures like baseball cards. He kissed me first on a bench by the frog pond, ice skaters spinning behind us. His mouth tasted like peppermint, and possibility. I kissed him back like I was starving because We didn't talk about tomorrow. We just kept meeting. Midnight coffee in the library basement, shared earbuds on the tea, his thumb tracing the calluses on my palms like they were braille for resilience. He learned I hated pity. I learned he hated silence. So we filled the spaces with plans. After graduation, he'd consult for nonprofits. I'd work pediatric oncology. We'd save for a tiny apartment with a window that didn't face a brick wall. Kids someday, maybe. Travel definitely. Italy, Morocco, anywhere the Wi-Fi was bad and the food was loud. One night in his grad student studio, fairy lights strung over a sagging futon, he pulled me close and whispered, "When I can give you the life you deserve, I'll make you my wife." I believed him, not because I wanted diamonds or a big house. I wanted him the way he saw every scar and called it a map. The way he said my name like it was the answer to a question he'd been asking his whole life. Halloween that year was our first real date. He showed up at the diner in a thrift store vampire cape, plastic fangs crooked in his smile. I wore the same black dress I'd use 8 years later, but knew then, the hem still crisp. We carved pumpkins on the common, seeds sticking to our fingers, laughing when his turned out lopsided. He smeared orange guts on my cheek and said, "I'll never hide behind masks with you, Margaret. Not ever." I kissed the pumpkin off his mouth and thought, this is what safety feels like. We didn't know his mother had already seen a photo. Didn't know she'd smiled that thin Williamson smile and said, "Edward, she's a lovely, but you have responsibilities." Didn't know the word distraction was code for everything I was and wasn't. We only knew the city was gold and red and ours. We only knew the space between his hand and mine was exactly enough. That was the fall before the fall. Before the missed calls, the canceled plans, the silence that swallowed promises whole. Before I learned that some masks aren't plastic, they're inherited. Before I learned that fairy tales don't crack, they shatter, and the pieces cut deep enough to last a lifetime. But that night, under a harvest moon and a sky full of maybe, I was just a girl who didn't believe in fairy tales until one started believing in me. The harvest moon faded into a November chill, and the fairy tale started to splinter. Ed invited me to Sunday brunch at the Williamson estate in Brookline. White columns, manicured hedges, the kind of house that photographs itself. I wore my only dress with sleeves, navy wool I'd found at a church sale, and practiced smiling in the cracked mirror above the diner sink. Asterisk, don't fidget. Don't apologize for existing. Asterisk, Ed squeezed my hand in the Uber. They'll love you, he promised. I wanted to believe him the way I'd believed in midnight coffee and forever. The dining room smelled of lemon polish and old money. Crystal sconces caught the light like accusations. Mrs. Williamson, Blair, wore pearls the size of quail eggs and a smile sharp enough to slice bread. Mr. Williamson, Charles, shook my hand with the grip of a man used to closing deals. Their eyes catalogued me. The dress, the braids twisted into a low bun, the absence of a last name they recognized. Conversation stayed polite until the salmon course. "Margaret," Blair said, tilting her head, Edward tells us you're in nursing school. How ambitious for someone with your background. The words landed soft as velvet, heavy as lead. I felt Ed stiffen beside me. She's top of her class, he said, voice steady. Works doubles to pay for it. Charles chuckled into his mimosa. Drive is admirable, but Edward's future is already mapped out. Senate committees, foundation boards. You wouldn't understand that kind of responsibility. I understood plenty. I understood the way Blair's gaze flicked to my hands. No manicure. Faint burn scar from a diner grill. I understood the silence that followed, thick as the linen napkins. Ed's defense came out clipped. She understands more than most people in this room. We left before dessert. In the car, he apologized with his forehead against the steering wheel. They're old-fashioned. Give them time. I wanted to ask whose time, mine or theirs, but I only nodded. Love, I was learning, sometimes meant swallowing glass and calling it wine. The cracks widened. First it was one canceled date. Dad needs me at the firm. Then two. Then a week of texts that thinned like November light. I'd wait on the common bench where we used to share earbuds, watching couples who looked like us but weren't. My phone stayed silent. I told myself grad school was brutal. I told myself family pressure was real. I told myself everything except the truth whispering at the edges. You were a detour, not a destination. December arrived with sleet and silence. His number went straight to voicemail, then to a robotic, not in service. I stood outside his studio at 2 a.m., breath fogging the window, but the lights were dark and the mailbox overflowed. The doorman shrugged. Kid moved out. No forwarding. I stopped sleeping. The diner coffee tasted like ash. Customers asked why I wasn't smiling. I said flu season. Inside, something calcified, proof that I mattered, evaporating one unanswered call at a time. Then January and the 2 pink lines on a drugstore test. I sat on the bathroom floor of my studio, knees to chest, counting ceiling cracks. 23, uninsured, pregnant, and alone. The foster kid who swore she'd never repeat the cycle now carried it in her bloodstream. I cried until my ribs hurt. Then I stopped. Crying wouldn't pay for prenatal vitamins. I wrote at a letter on the back of a syllabus, words smudged by tears and cheap ink. Asterisk, you said you'd never wear a mask. But you did, the one your family polished for generations. I don't need your money or your name. I just needed you to choose me back. Chloe deserves better than ghosts. So, do I? Asterisk. I never mailed it. Folded it instead, tucked it behind the Polaroid of us laughing in pumpkin guts, and slid the frame into the deepest drawer. Some truths are too heavy to send. They live in the dark and grow teeth. The months blurred, morning sickness in the diner alley, studying fetal circulation between tables, strangers' hands on my belly offering blessings I didn't trust. I named her Chloe after my grandmother, the one who taught me love could be quiet and still hold the world together. One night, 8 months along, I sat on the fire escape with a bowl of cereal balanced on my stomach. The city hummed below, indifferent and alive. Chloe kicked like she was dancing. I pressed my palm to the spot, and whispered into the dark. You'll never feel unwanted. Not by me. I'm your home, your soft place, your loudest cheer. The world might try to teach you different, but I'll spend every day proving it wrong. The fairy tale was over, but the story, ours, was just beginning. 7 years later, the city had grown up around us, but our world stayed small enough to fit inside a one-bedroom above. Mrs. Rossi's bakery on Dorchester Avenue mornings smelled like cinnamon rolls and possibility. I'd wake before the sun, braid Chloe's curls while the oven timers dinged downstairs, and we'd race to catch the 7:15 bus, her backpack bouncing, my nursing clogs squeaking on the linoleum. Life wasn't grand, but it was steady, and steady was a luxury I'd once only dreamed of. I worked full-time at the community clinic in Mattapan, flu shots, asthma checks, the endless paperwork that kept kids breathing. My name tag read Margaret Elliott, RN, and I wore it like armor. The paycheck stretched if I skipped coffee and mended Chloe's sneakers with duct tape. We didn't have extras, but we had routines. Thursday pizza nights with 2 toppings max, library story hour on Saturdays, and Halloween, our Super Bowl. Halloween was sacred. We started planning in August, sketching costumes on the back of clinic flyers. This year, Chloe wanted to be a pumpkin fairy. Orange tutu, glitter wings, a crown of silk leaves. I stayed up past midnight hand-sewing while she helped by tangling the thread. We carved jack-o'-lanterns on the fire escape, seeds roasting in the toaster oven, faces lopsided and perfect. Our window glowed with construction paper ghosts and battery tea lights. Chloe pressed her nose to the glass and declared, "We're the spookiest building on the block, Mommy." She was 7 now, all knees and questions, with Ed's impossible blue eyes and my stubborn chin. She could read chapter books, tie her shoes, sort of, and negotiate an extra 10 minutes of reading time like a seasoned lawyer. Strangers stopped us on the street to say, "Those eyes, wow." I'd smile tight and change the subject. Chloe never asked why she didn't have a daddy like the kids at school. Or she hadn't until recently. I told her the soft version. He was someone Mommy knew a long time ago. He had to travel far away for work. She'd nod, satisfied, then ask if astronauts celebrated Halloween on the moon. But kids notice silences. They catalog the way you flinch at certain songs, the extra lock on the bedroom drawer. One rainy Tuesday, I came home to find Chloe cross-legged on my bed, the Polaroid in her small hands. "Mommy, who's this?" The photo, Ed and me, pumpkin carving, his arms slung around my shoulders, both of us 22 and invincible. I'd forgotten it was in the frame with the unsent letter. Just a friend from nursing school. I lied, tucking it back. Helped me study. "He looks nice," she said, tracing his smile. "He has eyes like mine." My heart folded in half. "Lots of people do, baby." She didn't push. But that night, she drew him into her fairy tale picture book, a prince with blue eyes standing beside a nurse with braids. I found it under her pillow and cried into my coffee. I hid the hard parts from her. The double shifts when my feet swelled, the overdue electric bill folded into a library book, the way I still checked my phone for a number that no longer existed. Chloe saw the magic, how I turned leftover scrubs into doll clothes, how Mrs. Rossi slipped us day-old pastries, how we danced to old Motown while folding laundry. She didn't see the nights I stared at the ceiling, calculating if love could stretch far enough to fill 2 lifetimes. Then October brought the memo at the clinic. Asterisk Williamson Foundation Charity Gala, Halloween night. Volunteers needed. Overtime pay, asterisk. My stomach flipped, but I skimmed past the name. Williamson was common enough. Hospitals, scholarships, half the buildings in Boston. I signed up for the extra hours. Chloe needed winter boots, and pride didn't keep feet warm. We spent the week before the gala in a whirlwind of glitter and hot glue. Chloe practiced her fairy curtsy in the hallway mirror. I ironed my one black dress and safety pinned a witch hat from the dollar store. "We'll be the best dressed staff in the room," I told her. She believed me. The night before the event, we sat on the fire escape sharing a caramel apple. City lights blinked below like fallen stars. Chloe's wings caught the breeze. "Mommy, do you think rich people get scared on Halloween?" "Everybody gets scared sometimes," I said. "Even witches." She leaned her head on my shoulder, sticky fingers in mine. "I'm glad we're a team." "Always, baby." I didn't know the ghosts from my past were about to walk straight into my present. Golden mask, tailored cloak, and 8 years of unanswered questions. I only knew the cinnamon rolls smelled sweeter than ever, and my daughter's laugh could light the whole block. For now, that was enough. Halloween night arrived in a swirl of frost and fairy dust. The Williamson estate loomed on Beacon Hill like a haunted palace, black iron gates, gargoyles wearing cobwebs, windows glowing amber. Chloe clutched my hand as we climbed the marble steps, her pumpkin fairy wings catching the wind. I'd swapped my nursing clogs for thrift store boots, the witch dress hemmed with safety pins. Overtime pay, I reminded myself. Boots for Chloe. That was the mantra. Inside, the ballroom was a fever dream of Gothic luxury. Chandeliers dripped with orange garlands and black roses. Carved pumpkins lined the grand staircase, their candlelight flickering like secrets. Guests floated in velvet capes, diamond-encrusted masks, and gowns that cost more than my annual salary. A string quartet played Danse Macabre, while servers in silver half-masks balanced trays of champagne flutes that caught the light like liquid stars. The theme, unmasking hope, was spelled out in gold script above the stage. Irony, apparently, was in fashion. Chloe's eyes went saucer-wide. "Mommy, it's like a real castle." I squeezed her hand. "Just for tonight, baby." Children were encouraged. Tiny superheroes and princesses darted between legs, collecting candy from crystal bowls. I'd signed us up as volunteer staff, me on drink duty, Chloe as official candy ambassador. The clinic director promised double pay and a safe corner for kids. I needed both. We checked in at a side table. A woman in a peacock mask handed me an apron embroidered with the Williamson Foundation crest, a stylized W entwined with a phoenix. My stomach dipped, but I pushed it down. Coincidence. Boston was crawling with old money foundations. Then I saw the portrait. It hung in the marble foyer, life-sized and impossible to miss. Ed Williamson, philanthropist, global visionary, host. Older, sharper jaw, silver at the temples, eyes that had learned to command rooms. He wore a navy suit-like armor, one hand in his pocket, the other resting on a globe. The plaque read, Edward J. Williamson III, founder and CEO. The air left my lungs in a rush. 8 years collapsed into a single heartbeat. Chloe tugged my sleeve. Mommy, look. The prints from your picture. I followed her gaze to a smaller photo on the welcome table. Ed at last year's gala. Golden Venetian mask pushed up into his hair. Laughing with donors. Same smile. Same eyes. My knees buckled. Sweetheart, we should. But there's candy. She pointed to a towering dessert table, chocolate fountains, candied apples, a cotton candy machine spinning pink clouds. Her wings fluttered with excitement. Please? Just a little. I couldn't say no. Not tonight. Not when her joy was the only thing keeping my own ghosts at bay. I tied on the apron, handed Chloe a tiny basket, and took my post at the champagne station. The ballroom pulsed with laughter and camera flashes. I poured, smiled, circulated, mechanical, invisible. Guests barely glanced at the staff. I preferred it that way. Then I saw him. Ed stood near the stage, golden mask now covering half his face, princely cloak sweeping the floor. A woman in a crimson gown clung to his arm. Fiancé, probably. Her laugh practiced and bright. Photographers circled like sharks. He adjusted his cufflinks the same way he used to when nervous, back when nervous meant choosing between library coffee or diner pie. My tray trembled. Champagne sloshed. I turned away, focusing on a senator's empty flute. Asterisk breathe. Pour. Smile. Asterisk. Chloe had vanished into the kid zone near the dessert table, wings bobbing above tiny heads. Safe. Happy. I could survive 2 hours. But fate apparently had other plans. I was restocking flutes when a small hand tugged my sleeve. Chloe's face peered up, cheeks flushed, eyes sparkling with that dangerous mix of sugar and curiosity. Mommy, she whispered, loud enough to carry, that man looks exactly like the one from your picture. She pointed straight across the room. To Ed. My heart stopped. The tray slipped, crystal chimed against marble. Heads turned. Sweetheart, not now. But Chloe, my brave, unstoppable girl, was already moving. Wings fluttering, basket swinging, she marched through the crowd like a tiny general. I lunged after her, apron strings tangling, boots slipping on polished stone. Chloe, wait. Too late. She stopped right in front of him, head tilted back, staring up at the golden mask. The orchestra swelled. The room hushed. And my daughter asked the question that would shatter 8 years of silence. Sir, are you my daddy? Chloe's voice wasn't loud. It was small, clear, threaded with the same wonder she used for fireflies or shooting stars. But in that ballroom, packed with 300 souls in silk and sequins, it boomed like thunder. The orchestra faltered. A violinist's bow scraped silent. The cellist's note hung unfinished in the air. Champagne glasses froze midair, senators' fingers whitening on stems, donors' laughs dying on parted lips. Reporters, clustered like wolves at the stage's edge, whipped their cameras around. Flashes popped like gunfire. The carved pumpkins seemed to lean in, their jagged grins widening. Ed Williamson, my Ed, the ghost I'd buried, blinked behind the golden slits of his mask. His princely cloak pooled at his feet as he knelt slowly, like a man caught in slow motion. The color drained from his jawline, sharp as I remembered, now etched with lines success had carved. His fiancée, tall, crimson-gowned, diamonds winking at her throat, frowned, her manicured hand tightening on his arm. "Edward? Who's this?" He didn't answer her. Couldn't. His eyes, those impossible blue ones, flecked with amber, locked on Chloe's. The same eyes. The exact dimple in her left cheek when she smiled up at him, innocent and unafraid. 8 years of math slammed into him. 7-year-old girl plus vanished summer plus unanswered promises equals daughter. "Sweetheart," he managed, voice cracking like thin ice, "I think you're mistaken. I'm just a prince tonight." Chloe tilted her head, wings drooping slightly, but her honesty didn't waver. "No, sir. Mommy keeps your picture in her drawer. The one where you're carving pumpkins together. She says you're a friend from long ago, but you look just like me." The room inhaled as one. Cameras swiveled, lenses finding me across the crowd, apron askew, which hat crooked, face burning under the chandeliers. Whispers ignited like dry leaves. Who is she? Williamson's old flame? Look at the eyes. A glass slipped from a donor's hand, shattering on marble like brittle bones. The fiancée's frown deepened to a scowl. She stepped back, crimson skirts rustling. I couldn't hide. Not anymore. Legs leaden, heart hammering, I stepped forward through the sea of frozen masks. The crowd parted, socialites clutching pearls, reporters live-streaming the unraveling. My boots echoed, too loud, too real against the opulence. Calm, I told myself. Trembling, I was anything but. "Hello, Ed," I said softly, stopping a breath away. "It's been a while." Gasps rippled outward, a wave crashing against the walls. His mask tilted up. He rose unsteadily, fiancé forgotten. For a split second, the Golden Prince was 22 again, rain-damp hair, diner booth, whispering forever. Then reality clawed back. The empire he'd built on my silence, the life he'd mapped without me. "Margaret," he breathed, the name a ghost on his lips. His eyes darted from me to Chloe, tracing the curls, the dimple, the blue that screamed Williamson. The amber fleck sealed it. His hand reached out, hovered, fell. "You, she." The whispers swelled to a roar. Scandal. Air. Black single mom? Phones lifted higher. Flashes blinded. A reporter barked, "Mr. Williamson, is this your daughter?" The fiancé hissed something sharp, spinning away into the crowd. Ed's face crumpled. Not the polished CEO, but the boy who'd promised no masks. He knelt again, eye level with Chloe, voice thick. What's your name, little one? Chloe Elliott, she said proudly, offering her candy basket like a peace treaty. And Mommy says I'm named after a strong lady. He swallowed hard, glancing at me, guilt raw, regret pooling. The truth hit him full force. Not just a daughter, but mine. Ours. The one he'd walked from, the life he'd erased. I scooped Chloe into my arms, her wings brushing his cloak. Time to go, baby. But my eyes held his. You see her now? The room didn't thaw. It watched unmasked, exposed, as the Williamson heir knelt before a thrift store fairy and a witch in scuffed boots. Reporters surged forward. Security hovered. Ed stood, mask slipping askew, and whispered, Margaret, wait. They say Halloween is a night for masks, but sometimes truth walks in wearing your own face. Chloe nestled against my shoulder, oblivious to the chaos she'd unleashed, munching a pilfered caramel apple. Did I do good, Mommy? You did perfect, I murmured, carrying her toward the exit. Cameras trailed us like shadows. Behind, Ed's voice cut through. Margaret. I didn't turn. 8 years of silence deserved no encore. The grand doors loomed freedom or the next storm. Whispers chased us into the night. The unmasking. Hope indeed. Outside, frost nipped the air. Jack-o'-lanterns grinned from the steps. Chloe yawned, wings folding. Best Halloween ever. I held her tighter, heart steadying. The ghosts were out, but we were walking. And for the first time in years, I wasn't running. The estate grounds glittered under strings of orange bulbs, the fountain at the center bubbling like a witch's cauldron. Chloe wriggled down from my arms, drawn to the coin-scattered water. Mommy, can I make a wish? One, I said, fishing a penny from my apron pocket. She squeezed her eyes shut, wings drooping with concentration, then tossed it in with a plink. The ripples caught the moonlight, scattering her reflection into silver shards. I sank onto the stone bench, legs finally giving out. The gala's muffled music drifted through the hedges. Waltz turned funeral march. My witch hat lay crushed in my lap. Cobwebs snagged on my curls like surrender flags. Chloe hummed, sorting candy into piles. Chocolates, gummies, the lone peppermint she'd trade for anything. Footsteps on gravel. Soft, deliberate. I knew the rhythm before I looked up. Ed stood at the fountain's edge, mask gone, cloak unclasped and hanging open over his tuxedo. The prince reduced to a man, hair tousled, eyes red-rimmed, the weight of 1,000 camera flashes still clinging to his shoulders. He looked older in the moonlight, but the boy I'd loved flickered beneath, uncertain. Margaret. My name sounded foreign in his mouth, like a language he'd forgotten how to speak. Chloe glanced up, candy forgotten. The prince. He managed a crooked smile. Just Ed tonight, kiddo. She studied him, head tilted. You look sad. Grown-ups get that way sometimes. He crouched eye level. Mind if I sit with your mom a minute? Chloe shrugged, already distracted by a foil-wrapped spider. 'Kay, but don't eat my Snickers. He lowered himself beside me, close enough that I smelled his cologne, cedar and something sharper now, like boardrooms and regret. The fountain spray misted our shoes. Silence stretched, thick as the night. I didn't know, he said finally, voice low, about her, about any of it. I stared at the water. Your father told you I left you for someone else. Yes. A breath. And I believed him. The words landed soft, but they cut deep. I turned to him, then really looked. The man who'd once quoted Neruda over diner coffee now carried empires in the lines around his eyes. You believed him, I repeated quieter. Without a call, without a fight. He flinched. I was 23. Scared. My father said you'd taken a payout, moved on. He showed me bank records, transfers I never questioned. I thought, his voice cracked. I thought I wasn't enough to keep you. I laughed, bitter and small. You were everything. And then you were gone. Chloe skipped over, offering him a single gummy worm. Peace treaty? He took it solemnly, pink sugar dusting his fingers. Thank you, Chloe. She beamed and returned to her candy kingdom. Ed watched her, something breaking open in his face. I thought I buried my past, he said, built over it with foundations and headlines. But it found me in a princess dress and pumpkin wings. I folded my arms, shielding the ache. She's not a plot twist, Ed. She's a person. My person. I know, he swallowed. I looked for you once. Hired someone. They said you'd changed your name, left the state. I stopped looking because it hurt less to believe you were happy without me. I closed my eyes. The fountain gurgled, indifferent. I wasn't happy, I said. I was surviving. There's a difference. He reached into his cloak, pulled out a small velvet pouch. Inside, a check folded small. For the clinic. For her trust. Whatever you need. I pushed it back. You don't get to fix this with money, Ed. You fix it with truth. His hand trembled. Then let me start. I was wrong. Cowardly. I let them choose my life, and I lost the only part that mattered. Chloe's laugh rang out as she balanced a candy corn on the fountain's edge. He followed the sound like a lifeline. Can I be part of her life? Not as a savior, as whatever you'll let me be. I studied him, the man who'd promised forever and delivered silence. The man kneeling in frost with gummy sugar on his cuff. She deserves honesty, I said. That's all. No masks. No headlines. Just truth, slow and steady, if she wants it. He nodded, eyes glistening. I can do slow. Chloe ran over. Wings askew. Mommy, the fountain ate my peppermint. I pulled her close, kissing the sugar from her cheek. Some things are meant to stay lost, baby. Ed stood, cloak swirling. I'll wait. However long. I didn't answer. The night didn't need promises, it needed space. He walked backward a few steps, memorizing her, our daughter, then turned toward the lights. Chloe waved. Bye, sad prince. He lifted a hand, gummy worm and all, and disappeared into the glow. I gathered Chloe's candy, her wings, her sleepy weight. The fountain kept bubbling, coins glinting like tiny moons. "Mommy," she mumbled into my neck. Was he really my daddy? I carried her down the gravel path, frost crunching underfoot. "Mommy," she mumbled into my neck. Was he really my daddy? I pressed my lips to her curls. "Some ghosts," I whispered, "just need time to learn how to speak." Morning came with sirens of a different kind. The bakery's cinnamon scent was drowned by diesel and camera shutters. I opened our apartment door to a swarm, reporters 3 deep on the stoop, lenses glinting like jack-o'-lantern teeth. "Miss Elliot, is it true you hid Williamson's heir? How much is he paying you?" Chloe peeked around my hip, wings still crooked from sleep. I slammed the door, heart racing, and drew the paper ghost curtain tight. My phone buzzed itself dead. Clinic co-workers, old foster siblings, a number I hadn't saved in 8 years. The headlines were already screaming across every screen in Boston. "Billionaire's secret love child. Unmasked at gala. Williamson heir or hoax. DNA test demanded. Single mom's Halloween bombshell." Mrs. Rossi downstairs banged her broom on the ceiling, her code for trouble. I unplugged the landline, turned the ringer off, and made Chloe oatmeal with extra brown sugar. She ate cross-legged on the counter, fairy crown lopsided, asking why the picture people were yelling. "They're confused, baby," I said. "Eat your raisins." By noon, Ed's statement hit the wires short, surgical, protective. Last night's events involved a private family matter. I ask that the press respect the privacy of all individuals, especially the child. No further comment. No denial. No spectacle. Just a wall thrown up between Chloe and the storm. I exhaled for the first time since the fountain. The clinic called, my boss's voice shaking with awe. "Margaret, an anonymous donor just wired $3 million. Pediatric wing expansion," they said, "for the kids who need magic most." I knew whose remorse had a dollar sign. Afternoon brought quiet. Reporters thinned when no one answered the door. Mrs. Rossi brandished her rolling pin like a knight. Chloe napped with her candy bucket clutched to her chest. I sat at the kitchen table, witch costume in a heap, and let the silence settle. A soft knock, 3 measured taps. I opened to an empty hallway, and a single cream envelope slid under the door. Inside, a check made out to the clinic, not me, 7 figures and signed. And a note in Ed's handwriting, the same slanted script that once annotated my textbooks. For her future, and maybe one day our peace. No phone number, no plea, just ink and intention. I slipped the note into the Polaroid drawer beside the unsent letter. 2 relics now. Bookends to a story that no longer needed telling. The check I'd deliver Monday. The piece I'd decide on my own time. Evening painted the sky pumpkin orange again. Chloe woke hungry for grilled cheese. We ate on the fire escape, city lights flickering below like a second gala. She kicked her feet, recounting every candy trade she'd made. "Mommy, will the picture people come back?" "Maybe," I said, "but they don't get to write our ending." She leaned her head on my shoulder, warm and solid. "I like our story better anyway." "Me too." The ghosts had spoken, loud, public, impossible to ignore. But they didn't get the final word. I'd built a life on double shifts, thrift store wings, and bedtime stories whispered in the dark. Ed's millions could fund a new wing, but they couldn't buy the mornings Chloe and I had earned. Cinnamon air, mismatched socks, laughter that cost nothing. I tucked the envelope away, closed the drawer, and let the city hum. Closure wasn't a grand gesture. It was the quiet click of a lock finally turning. I didn't need rescue. I only needed to be seen, and last night in a ballroom of masks, I finally was. Chloe yawned, wings folded like a sleepy butterfly. Read me the one about the brave nurse and the pumpkin fairy? I carried her inside, book already open in my mind. Once upon a time, I began. There was a girl who didn't believe in fairy tales until she became one. Once upon a time, I began. There was a girl who didn't believe in fairy tales until she became one. Halloween came around again 1 year later, softer this time, like a favorite sweater washed 100 times. The apartment smelled of pumpkin guts and Sharpie ink. Chloe, now 8 and all gangly limbs, knelt on newspaper spread across our kitchen floor, tongue poking out as she carved a lopsided witch face. Look, Mommy, hers got eyebrows. I laughed, scooping slimy seeds into a bowl for roasting. My knife traced a fairy with glittery wings, Chloe's idea, of course. No more ache in my chest when I held the blade, just the steady rhythm of mother-daughter ritual. The clinic's new wing had opened in spring, named Chloe's Corner in tiny brass letters no one but us would notice. Ed's millions at work, silent as promised. Outside, Dorchester buzzed with costumed kids and distant laughter. Our window glowed with fresh paper ghosts, battery lights twinkling like captured stars. Chloe's wings from last year hung in the closet, retired but ready for dress-up days. She'd outgrown them, same as I'd outgrown silence. Mommy, past the googly eyes? I tossed her the bag. One stuck to her cheek. She left it there, cross-eyed and giggling. Laughter filled the room now, easy, unearned, the kind that chases shadows without trying. No reporters at the door since February. Ed's visits were sporadic. Ice cream in the park, a quiet birthday gift of art supplies, always asking permission first. Chloe called him the prince who visits. Matter of fact, no fairy tale wait. He kept his word. No masks, no headlines. Just truth, slow and steady. We finished as the first fireworks cracked over the city, boom of color painting our walls violet and gold. Chloe scrambled onto the fire escape, me right behind, mugs of hot cider steaming in our hands. Boston sprawled below, a carpet of jack-o'-lanterns and glowing windows. A rocket burst overhead, green sparks raining like emerald leaves. Chloe leaned against the railing, cider mustache gleaming. Mommy, do you think he'll come visit again? Her voice was light, curious, not longing, just wondering. I wrapped an arm around her shoulders, pulling her close against the chill. Maybe, I said, smiling into her curls. Princes have busy kingdoms. But even if he doesn't, we're okay. We've got our own magic. She nodded, satisfied, and pointed as a massive chrysanthemum of red exploded above Fenway. That one's ours. We watched until the finale thundered. Silver cascades, blue stars, the whole city holding its breath. Chloe clapped, spilling cider down her pajamas. I didn't care. This was our skyline, our night, our story rewritten in laughter and light. Later, with her tucked in, witch pumpkin guarding her bedside, I stood at the window, city embers fading to quiet glow. The Polaroid drawer stayed closed these days, the unsent letter yellowed but unread. Ed had freed something in me that Halloween, not romance, not rescue, but permission. To be seen. To be whole, without apology. They say Halloween is when ghosts come out. But that night, mine didn't come to haunt me. He came to free me. And I learned that love isn't always about who stays. Sometimes, it's about who finally tells the truth. The mother and daughter stood silhouetted against the window, unmasked, whole, and free. City lights flickered like embers below, but up here, in our cinnamon-scented world, the real magic glowed steady and sure. Let us know what you thought of this tale full of emotions and surprises. Tell us your name, where you're watching from, and rate this story from 0 to 10 if it touched your heart. And if you enjoyed the story, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the amazing new stories coming soon. See you next time.